Hey everybody, Sean from Movie Assault here, and it's time once again for another episode of the Halloween 15 for 2021. This is episode 13, and this time out I wanted to take a look at 1985's Fright Night. This stars William Ragsdale, Chris Sarandon, Roddy McDowall, Amanda Bierce, and Stephen Jeffries. And this tells the story of Charlie Brewster, who's played by William Ragsdale. He's a high school student in a small town. He likes to stay up late watching a horror movie show called Fright Night, which is hosted by Peter Vincent, played by Roddy McDowall. And he has a girlfriend named Amy, who's played by Amanda Bierce. And everything seems hunky-dory in his life until he notices his next-door neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, who's just moved in, is acting a little strange. In fact, he's acting so strange to the point where Charlie sees him putting a coffin in his basement. Charlie is convinced that his new next-door neighbor is a vampire. So now he is faced with the challenge of convincing the local authorities that he's a vampire because there's a series of murders that is occurring in the town and they're going unsolved. Jerry is probably the culprit, according to Charlie. But he can't convince Amy, he can't convince his friend Evil Ed, who's played by Stephen Jeffries, and so he comes up with this idea that he will have Peter Vincent, the host of the local horror show, try to take on this vampire threat because Peter Vincent used to play a vampire killer in his old movies. And what ensues is sort of a really well-written, well-acted homage to horror films, old horror films, the ones that came out before slasher movies were all the rage. And this movie, Fright Night, came out when slasher movies were all the rage, 1985, mid-80s. This was written and directed by Tom Holland, and of course Tom Holland went on to direct Child's Play, among other things. But this movie is filled with just all of the old venerable tropes from those old school horror movies. It has some comedy, and it does manage to also muster up some genuine scares. It takes sort of a tongue-in-cheek approach to the material. By doing so, it does craft these believably skeptical characters like Evil Ed and Amy, and once they are convinced, their reactions are understandably shocked. But all of the cast members involved in this are excellent. William Ragsdale is great as Charlie Brewster. Evil Ed's performance by Stephen Jeffries is totally one of a kind. But Chris Sarandon is really the one who sells it the most with his sort of seductive portrayal of Jerry Dandridge, the vampire who lures all these young women to his house and then they end up leaving in body bags. And of course I can't leave out Roddy McDowall, who makes this sort of believably reluctant transformation from a B-movie vampire killer to a real vampire killer. There really isn't a weak performance in the bunch. But while the movie's enjoyable on its own merits, it's really the passage of time that has sort of given an extra layer of charm to the movie. Fright Night perfectly encapsulates what made the 80s such a rich time for genre movies like this. The combination of Brad Fiddel's synthesizer score and the effective practical special effects, the crazy clothes of the time, and just the general attitudes of the era, it all coalesces into a movie that simply could not be made or even recreated today. And try as shows like Stranger Things might try to bring back that nostalgic feeling, it really can't come close to the real thing. So I really think that the passage of time has really helped this movie out. It's just a beautiful example of 1980s horror that is not of the slasher genre. So it's really entertaining, really funny, has some genuine scares. I really can't recommend this enough. I give Fright Night an 8 out of 10. So there you go. That's my review of 1985's Fright Night. Stay tuned for episode 14, where I'll take a look at 2021's Halloween Kills. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy.